Aloha and good afternoon. My name is Juergen Steinmetz, joining you from the Breaking News Show in Honolulu. And with me in College Station, Texas, is Dr. Peter Tarlow. He just got back from Mexico. You can see he's all relaxed and ready to go. And about the weather here in Hawaii, it's cloudy, but it's nice. I think we have a lot of people at the beach. The hotels are expensive but full. And how's everything in College Station?
Well, I'm jealous because Texas is having a very cold and rainy week. I think tomorrow the sun will show, but we've had almost ice, not quite ice. In northern Texas, they did have ice, but it's bitterly cold. It goes right to your bones. And I'd rather be in Hawaii, to be quite honest. I think the weather there is a lot better this week.
Well, Hawaiian Airlines goes to Austin, and there's some flights. Houston, United goes from Houston.
Yes, United has a direct flight from.
Yes.
The problem is, I don't know if Hawaii wants any more tourists. I'd have to come live in your house.
Yeah, well, I mean, and then we could find a space if that's.
Yes.
Hawaii wants tourists.
I'm hoping the weather will get better. Usually the winter's quite nice in Texas, but this past week has been terrible. And I understand the weather is now moving to the U.S. East Coast and then eventually on to Europe or whatever. So I think the East Coast is going to have some bad weather for the next few days because it was bad in Texas. It'll be worse when it gets to the East Coast.
Well, let's see if the Chinese spy satellites can give us a better the balloon.
Yes, that's really quite
right now, and see if they can give us a better forecast.
Yes, that's really quite an interesting thing because we don't quite know why the government's not shooting it down unless they're trying to track it, but then you would expect that they wouldn't say anything about it. So it's kind of hard to figure out exactly why this spy balloon is there. When we've sent things over China, they shot them down. So it will be kind of interesting to figure out. We may never know the reason why the military has decided to let this balloon stay up in the air, but it's over Montana right now. And so it's an interesting experience.
How high do they go?
They're how high? I don't know. They're probably about 10,000 feet, but that's high enough.
That's where commercial air traffic is, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, the problem is that you have such good cameras on these today that most of these cameras, even from 10,000 feet, can probably take the picture of a license plate. So they're very, very precise. They're very good. And that means the Americans, the Russians, the Chinese, and I'm sure we're all, in the spy business. That's what governments do. But it's not thrilling to have the Chinese balloon up there. For some reason, the United States has decided to allow it to stay. Now, why that is, it's anybody's guess. So there's no way of knowing.
Well, just close your window sheets at night, if you
On the other hand, yes. On the other hand, what is true is that we're having some good things and some bad things with aviation. There's still a big problem post-COVID as far as number of flights have been canceled, or not canceled, but taken out of service. So the planes are fuller. Often there are major delays, as you know, and if you have to make connecting flights, that can be somewhat of a challenge. The airlines are getting a little bit better on service. For example, some of the airlines are starting to allow free Wi-Fi, and that's a good thing. Maybe that will compensate for the terrible food that the food was bad pre-COVID, but now it's worse. So,
well, it depends what airline you go on. I mean, I recently flew. Some airlines I hardly ever flew, like Royal Jordanian Airlines.
Yeah, they're probably very good.
Really good.
They're government supported.
Yes, and there are many airlines, I guess, they have excellent food. You cannot just all compare it with our U.S. carriers.
Yes, but our U.S. carriers are terrible. And it's hard to tell which is worse. They seem to be in competition for last place.
Yeah, and it's sometimes amazing. You cannot really get any worse than this. I kind of miss the old times from Pan American when you had caviar and steaks in first class.
And they would carve the roast beef right as they walked down the aisle.
Wasn't that nice? I mean,
yes. And I remember in the 1960s, even on a flight, from Washington, D.C. to Newark, New Jersey, which is maybe 45 minutes. You
You
still
gotta-
wore a jacket and tie. Women wore high heels and gloves, and they served something like basically a meal on a 45-minute flight. Today, if they give you water, you're lucky.
Yeah, I remember that flight. It must have been in the 80s when I was going on Royal Argent, or not Royal, it was not Royal, Argentinian Airlines,
Aerolíneas Argentinas.
Aerolíneas Argentinas. It was from Los Angeles to Lima, Peru, and it was going on to Buenos Aires. And I was lucky enough to have a first class ticket, but I didn't have a suit. And they would not let me board. They offered me a refund to coach unless I get a suit. So I remember I had to buy a jacket at the airport in LA. I did that, and they let me on and sit in first class. Was good service, nice service, but you better have your jacket.
Well, I can assure you that is not true today. You're happy if people have shoes and socks. So it's a very different world. But I do see a little bit of light coming to the tunnel in the fact that they are providing internet service on many of the airlines. So the Asian airlines tend to be really good. The European airlines seem to be, for the most part, in competition with the American airlines to see who can be worse. But the Asian airlines have really come up a lot. And I strongly suggest that if you can take between an American airline, a US carrier, or a European carrier, or an Asian carrier, go with the Asian carrier. They're probably going to be, the service is probably going to be a lot more elegant and a lot nicer. But
it's definitely true. And my favorite for many years was Singapore Airlines.
yes,
It is just unbelievable compared to anyone else. They're always better. I haven't flown them recently, but I hope they're going to stay at.
I understand they're still very good. Of course, they have some competition with Qatar Airlines and with Emirates.
Emirates, yes.
Yes, so you have the Middle Eastern Airlines, and you have, and then actually Cathay Pacific and some of the Korean airlines and All Nippon are also very good airlines.
Thai is good too. You know, they
Yes,
have excellent service.
Yeah, so there it is.
It's still very
Having just come back from Mexico, which is kind of interesting, I've been working with the what's called pueblos mágicos, which are the magical towns, and they're considered magical because they have some sort of artistic or cultural thing, and that really leads into our whole initiative on the World Tourism Network with cultural cities. And so the pueblos mágicos are based on the fact that I was in Pinos, which is famous for its dance. But what's nice about these little communities is each one of them emphasizes a different form of culture. And maybe that's something that we should talk about, because the concept of small and medium-sized cultural tourism may be a real wave of the future. It may have tremendous advantages for towns that have no other way of creating economic development through tourism.
Yeah, and that's really, sometimes there are so many regions that are really overlooked when it comes to tourism potential. Everyone knows London, everyone knows Rome, or the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but there's so much more out there in the world, and now it's the time to explore it, I guess.
And some of those big cities are over touristed, where they're looking, they're oversaturated with tourists. But when you go to some of these smaller towns, like I was just in, they're ecstatic if you're there. The whole town is ready to almost give you a celebration. And so possibly one of the really cool things about tourism is to get off the beaten path a little bit. Go to some of the small and medium-sized cities and discover that these places had tremendous amounts of culture and other areas that people are overlooking. What do you think the World Tourism Network can do to kind of promote this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's one of our sessions we have in Bali. We started the small cultural regions interest group, but we call it think tank now.
So tell us about Bali. Wait a second. You just jumped to Bali. So what is Bali?
Well, we at World Tourism Network going to have our first summit.
Yes.
Organization we started, and our first summit will be in Bali, Indonesia.
I'm really looking forward to it. I've never been to Indonesia, and this is going to be an experience for me.
Yeah, and Bali is its own territory, as the Hindu island in the middle of the largest Muslim country in the world. So has a lot to offer. It's called the Islands of the Gods because in every single day in Bali there is some kind of a holiday or festival, and so
Wow.
every day you find some little village and they're dancing. They have holidays. They celebrate. So Bali is really a special place. So we're looking forward to being in Bali. It's going to be a 3-day event, and our discussion points are one, the cultural tourism of the world. We're going to have a session on medical tourism. One of our partners is a new Mayo clinic. It's called the Bali International Clinic that will open at the same time, and it's concentrating also on medical tourism. So that's going to be exciting to get them on board. And we're also going to go into climate change. Professor Jeffrey Lipman will be there with a team of experts, and he did a study on Bali several years ago. So he has a lot of material actually to contribute to this. And of course, it's going to be a showcase for Indonesia. We're combining this with a large fam trip, and also those that are interested in tourism or tourists from Indonesia, because Indonesia has developed, it's one of the largest outbound markets in Asia and a very large outbound market for the world. We invite tourism boards from across the globe that are interested in tourists from Indonesia to meet those travel agents and tour operators, and also some people from the public that may be interested in traveling to the Maldives, to Germany, or whoever wants to join us. So we're excited. You can find the information. Actually, we have a website for it, and you can pre-register. It's at time2023.com.
So let's say that again. It's time2023.com.
And of course, if you miss it, you go to any of our websites. You go click on events, and you will find it right away.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to being in Bali, and it will be a real experience for me. It looks like in Bali they have more holidays than even we have in the Jewish world.
Oh, absolutely.
By the way,
Absolutely.
speaking about ecology, as you probably know, this coming Sunday night and Monday is Tu B'Shvat, which is the New Year of the trees, and that's and I think I don't know how many ethnic groups have a special New Year for trees, but so traditionally we plant a tree on Tu B'Shvat, and you get to eat all sorts of fruits. So happy Tu B'Shvat.
Well, we have another holiday coming up on February 5th. It's the holiday of computers, because that's when I got my computer.
Oh,
that's computer was.
But I don't think that, I don't know if that's just Juergen wide or that's worldwide. But maybe you could start it. Maybe we could have National Computer Day.
Yeah, maybe whenever Microsoft invented the computers, I think they did, or the internet, we have a day of the internet. I know Jamaica is celebrating Tourism Resilience Day, February 16th or around that time.
And Valentine's is coming up, and that's another big travel holiday. And so really February is filled with holidays. You have Tu B'Shvat, you have Computer Day, you have Microsoft Day now, and you have Valentine's Day and Resilience Day.
Yeah, so we have enough days to celebrate every day. Why even work? With time, day, your life is a holiday, so that's what it is.
And that's what the tourism business is all about. Speaking about holidays, though, I was again just in Mexico. Mexico really is a wonderful place if you want to enjoy and have a great time. Mexico City is the youngest big city in the world, and it's really dynamic. And if you haven't been to Mexico City, I really encourage people to go. It has all the fun of New York City without half the hassles. And it's actually a lot safer than New York City. So it's a great city. It's not a small city. Its metropolitan area is 22 million people, at least, maybe more. Some people think it's the biggest city in the world. But it's from the United States, it's so close and yet so foreign. And when you arrive, you're definitely in a completely different world and a completely different culture. So I strongly encourage people to go. I'll be in Morelia, Mexico in March, And that's another really exciting, that's a small cultural city, but has so much to do. And I'm hoping some of these people become part of the World Tourism Network and our whole cultural initiative, because
Yeah,
it will
no.
do them a lot of good.
And of course, if you go to a city like Mexico City, keep in mind, spend an extra day. I'm so sorry, this is my phone. Spend an extra day in the beginning because the altitude is quite high. So if
Yes. Yeah,
maybe
a good way to get around that is it's high, much higher than Denver. And what I try to do that is I try to come in the evening. So if you arrive in the evening and you go to sleep that night, then the next morning when you get up, your body has already adjusted to the altitude. So if you're not going to do that, then spend an extra day. But if you can come in the evening, get an evening flight, arrive around 9 o'clock in the evening, go to bed, and wake up, and you will now had 9 or 10 hours to have your body adjust to the altitude.
yeah, and don't make the mistake and eat a lot and drink a lot the first night.
No,
You're going to
no,
regret it for the rest of your trip.
no. Be very careful. The first, once you're used to the city and the altitude, it's okay. But the first day you want to be very careful and not run. And remember that the bigger you are, the faster you fall. So
Yeah,
if you are a big man or a heavy man, be careful.
yeah, and I recommend if you do have to go to the pharmacy and get something to make you feel better, avoid the smaller pharmacies. Go to the big name brands.
Right.
It's quite shocking when you hear the reports, especially from many of the border cities in Mexico City. Pharmacies there's so many pharmacies because they're selling prescription drugs that are no longer prescription once you get to Mexico, and some of them have um, have
I don't know.
drugs involved. So people die. They're handmade and they're very dangerous.
As you know, there's a huge amount of fentanyl coming across the American border. And it's not only in Mexico, it's also in all the border states. And today, almost every state is a border state. So fentanyl is a major problem. And it's killing lots of young people. And it could be something as simple as you think a friend gives you an aspirin and it's been laced with fentanyl and that kills you. So you really want to be careful. And it's important for parents to emphasize to their children, don't take anything unless given to you from a very clear bottle by a professional in the field of medicine, a doctor or a school nurse or something like that. But do not take anything from a friend, period. Just live with the headache. Better to have a headache than to be dead.
No, absolutely, and it's so sad. It doesn't take much to really kill.
Very little fentanyl can
Yeah.
kill vast quantities of people. And this is a major problem. As you know, the whole border is a major problem because you have the problem of rape, you have the problem of slavery, you have the problem of human trafficking, you have the problem of illegal coyotes, known often as pollero in Spanish. These are real issues. And we're really, to a great extent, in the last few years, have gone back to living in the Middle Ages. And we have to be really careful about this because this is a major step backwards in the world.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and people need to be made aware. Many young people may not be aware of it.
No, they're not.
They
No.
go to a party and wow.
Yes, it takes very little to kill a human being. And so this is part, I think, something the tourism industry can really be fighting against because so many people do cross borders. Pharmaceuticals in the United States, for example, are extraordinarily expensive, too expensive, in my opinion, and they're looking for less expensive ways. And if they're not well regulated, this can put you into a very difficult situation. So, and I not only say from Mexico, this is something that has to be seen across the world. These are problems in many parts of the world. On the other hand, a nice bright spot, and we haven't spoken about it, is El Salvador. Now, El Salvador was the murder capital of the world, and their current president has really cleaned things up. Matter of fact, the BBC today reported on their new prison that can take, I think, something like 40,000 people if needed. But it's El Salvador has really cracked down on gangs and on murder, and El Salvador is moving to become a very safe and wonderful tourism destination. So it's not quite there yet, but it's definitely moving in the right direction. And what it's teaching us is that you don't always have to go from good to bad. Sometimes you can go from bad to good. And so El Salvador is really cleaning up its act.
That's good to hear. I've never been there. Only heard bad things about it, so let's change.
Well, whatever you heard that was bad, it was probably worse. Because I had lectured in El Salvador, and when I was there, we were told by the police not to wear a watch. And I said to the police officer, but it's a Timex watch from Walmart. You know, it's like a $5 watch. And the guy said to me, they'll kill you for that. And I had to go to speak to Parliament with the opposite of Aerolíneas Argentinas. I wasn't allowed a jacket. I wasn't allowed a belt. And I wasn't allowed a watch. And I wasn't allowed a tie, because all of those were considered dangers that somebody could kill you for. Today, it appears El Salvador is totally reversing that and really going from bad to good. So there's still reports coming out, but that seems to be a really new shining star in Latin America and the Sea of Tourism.
Well, we covered the world almost.
Yes, we did.
Peter. And,
Yes.
We're going to repeat this very soon. And yes, please, and anyone who's interested in our summit in Bali, just go to time2023.com. You will see Peter and myself and many others there, and it's going to be worth your trip, I can guarantee.
We are going to be there at the airport with open arms, giving you a hug as you get off the plane.
We'll do that.
All right. Have a wonderful, from Texas, a wonderful evening, or in Hawaii, a great afternoon. Shaloha, aloha, and whatever else anybody needs to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
If you wanted to watch us again, you can now go and find us on the right sidebar for eTurbo News on any page. You can get a director of our various events, or go to breakingnewsshow.com, or see us again live on your screen. And thank you for watching, and we talk to you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Champion.
Flight 805, clear to land.
Roger, you're clear for landing.
Stoffel Van Dorn, ready to engage, standing by.
Near the truck.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seat. We're now approaching Riyadh.
الدرعية بليز.